Well, good afternoon. I'm Simon Beardsley from Lincolnshire Chamber of Commerce, and a very warm welcome to this ChamberConnect webinar. I'm here to host the session today, and once again, it's a really practical one that will focus on the changes to the job retention scheme. The Chancellor announced changes to take effect from August 2020, and we'll aim to explore the impact that this will have on businesses and those who are furloughed and likely to be furloughed as well. So thank you for joining us and connecting with us virtually today. Our ChamberConnect series have replaced our normal face-to-face events, and we feel that they become a really important tool to connect and inform at this time. I'd just like to make you aware that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available by our website shortly. It will also be sent to you in follow-up links that we will send directly to you to the recorded email address. Before we move into the main part of the webinar, I'd just like to make you aware of some other support that the Chamber has at the moment, particularly in regard to HR support, where we've set up, with the help of our members, a HR support forum. It can be accessed via our Coronavirus Hub or via our website at links-chamber.co.uk, and there's a variety of free or discounted HR help and support that's available. And I mentioned our Coronavirus Hub. It's another place to look in terms of help, support and guidance. If you haven't been there so far, it's worth knowing that it is there. It's regularly updated. And again, www.links-chamber.co.uk is the place where to find that. Also keep up to date with us on Facebook and LinkedIn if you've not linked or liked, to make sure that you are connected with us. Make sure that you do so. We'll send you regular updates and information. And it is the result of feedback of why we're here this afternoon. And it's led to a series of webinars that we've called ChamberConnect. And these are very much meant to be interactive sessions. There will be chances for you to ask questions, and we certainly invite you to do so as they become richer when the audience get involved as well. So how does it work? Well, in a moment, I'm going to introduce you to Oliver Tasker. Oliver is a partner at Wilkin Chapman. And following an introduction from Oliver, I'll pose some questions to him that have been sent in already. And then it's over to you to get your questions and involvement. Throughout, when I'm asking the questions to Oliver, or later on, the way to pose a question is to use the chat function on Zoom. Along the bottom of the taskbar, if you click on chat, it will normally open a box up on the right-hand side. That will give you the ability to post a chat. Please put that in there, I say, throughout the conversation we're having, and we'll try to come back to you to answer those questions directly. So for now, I'd like to hand over to Oliver to say hello and start the session off. Oliver, are you there?
Hi, yes, Simon, I am. Yeah, hopefully everybody can hear me okay, and good to see so many new faces as well as some familiar ones as well on the session today. Like Simon said, I'm Oliver Tasker. I'm a partner at Wilkin Chapman Solicitors. I'm in the employment team, specialise in employment law, mainly helping advising businesses, and it has been extremely busy in terms of that, certainly in terms of the ever-changing coronavirus job retention scheme. And we're going to be going through the latest developments on that during the webinar and the ChamberConnect session today. And really, my main job is advising businesses around the UK on all aspects of employment law. And unfortunately, this is more progressing into redundancies as time does pass, which is the unfortunate situation. But really, the purpose of today is to go through flexible furlough and the changes that the Chancellor announced on Friday.
Okay, thanks, Oliver. So we've got about between 45 minutes and an hour for the session. So I'll just keep an eye on the clock, and therefore if you've got some questions, try and get them in early so we can get through as many as possible. First question that I had in for you, Oliver, is that the Chancellor's confirmed that there will be some new flexibility within the scheme. Do you mind explaining to us what this will be?
Yes, so the Chancellor's announcement on Friday was the eagerly anticipated flexibility that he's now allowing from the 1st of July, and that is flexible furlough. A lot of businesses have actually been asking for this flexibility since quite an early stage, particularly those that have been able to continue to operate during the coronavirus issue and pandemic that we've been facing. So this flexibility that's been announced from the 1st of July is in fact a month earlier than the Chancellor initially suggested, which is fantastic, which is great support for businesses on getting back on the road to recovery and opening back up. But what that brings with it as well is the reduction in government support, so the tap slowly being turned off by the government in terms of the financial assistance that they're providing, which we will come back to. So one of the main parts of the announcement on Friday, like I say, was that from the 1st of July, businesses are going to be able to bring back employees back to work on a part-time basis, and then furlough them for the remainder of the week. So what this means is that you can bring them back, they can do some work for your business part-time, and you can still claim the government grant under the job retention scheme for the hours that they are not working for you. So it's that flexibility to get people back part-time and still have the benefit of the government funding. Now remember that this flexible furlough is optional. If you don't have the work there still for everybody to come back to do, then you can keep your employees on furlough, on full-time furlough. So it is very much flexible to go in line with the demands of your business and what you need. One question is, if you do bring somebody back on this flexible furloughing arrangement, what are they actually entitled to in terms of pay? So when an employee is working for you, they should be paid their normal wage, their normal salary, in line with their contract of employment. So if they're hourly paid, it's going to be very straightforward to calculate that. If they're salary paid, you're going to have to work out what they're entitled to compared to their normal monthly wage. So essentially pro rata it in line with the hours that they're working for you. Remember that obviously for any hours that they are working for you, the employees, and that you're paying them for, there's also the tax and national insurance contributions that you would normally make on those payments as well. One area that we need some clarification on, and you may hear me say that a few times today, and again I'll get to the reasons why, is that it's unclear at the moment whether you can agree to pay cuts for those that you're bringing back to work. So it may be the case that your business has continued to operate in some way and that you've not needed to furlough everybody, but for those that have remained employed and in work, you may have agreed pay cuts with them to help support the financial viability of the business, help with cash flow, and ultimately starve off redundancies, all being well. So one question that I've already been asked quite a lot is, well, actually, for those that are coming back, can I agree a pay cut for them? Now, there's nothing to suggest yet that you cannot, but the knock-on effect of that and what's unclear at the moment is what impact will that have on the grant for the hours that they're not working for you. Because if you think about how the grant works currently, it's calculated on the employee's pay for the pay period prior to the 19th of March, which is their pre-furlough pay. So how will this work if you now agree a salary, a pay cut for those that are coming back? So that's certainly one area that needs to be clarified when we do get the further guidance from the government. Secondly is, well, what can you claim for those employees that are not work? So the flexible work, start that again. The flexible furlough, what can you claim for what's not worked? And it's very much the hours that they are not working for you. And what the guidance has said so far is that when you come to submit a claim for those that are on flexible furlough, you'll need to submit the hours that they have worked for you during the claim period, together with the hours that they would have been expected to work for that period. Now, again, that's going to be fairly easy with those with standard hours of working for you. And you can clearly demonstrate what they would have been expected to work during that period and the hours that they have indeed done. Make the claim for those unworked hours fairly straightforward. It does mean that you're going to need to develop a system, whether it's a simple spreadsheet, so you can keep clear tab on exactly the hours employees are going to come back to work to assist with your claim. So they're really the opening comments on how this flexible working is going to develop and kick in as of the 1st of July.
Okay, thanks for that part. So what needs to be satisfied to be eligible for the grant? So are there any changes in terms of eligibility that we need to take account of?
It's still open to all UK businesses. Nothing's changing in that regard, and it's open to workers and those that you can currently furlough in terms of the flexibility aspect. One thing that you will need to do as an employer is agree the new flexible working arrangements in writing with the employee. So if, for example, you have somebody that not ordinarily works 5 days a week, you want them to come back and, for example, work 2, you need to have that agreement in writing so that they're going to work for 2 and remain on furlough for the 3 days that are left within the week. Now, ordinarily, we're used to a 3-week minimum period for furlough, and that's going to continue for those that remain on furlough full time. But for those that are going to be on flexible furlough, it appears that you can change the working arrangements week by week. So again, that's going to help the business, help you plan, help you do work that you've got in. You may have fluctuations of work where you may not need people for as many hours for the following week, or you may need to increase their hours. So it looks like you can change that week by week. And again, you just need evidence of that in writing. Now, we're expecting further guidance and the detailed guidance from the Chancellor on the 12th of June, which is a week on Friday, and that's going to give us the information on how claims are calculated, so how you work out what grant you can get from the government for those flexible furlough, and the real detail behind the scheme as well. But that's what we know so far in terms of that side. Simon.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to divert over to one of the questions in the chat box at the moment, because it sort of follows from what you've said there. If I brought someone back part-time, but then there isn't sufficient work, could you put them back on full-time furlough? Is there a consequence there in terms of either 3 weeks or a time lag, or other considerations such as written agreements that need to be taken into account?
You can. So if there's not the work there on an ongoing basis, they can be placed back on full-time furlough. Again, you'll just need confirmation, the agreement of that in writing, and it appears that that will then have to be for the minimum period of 3 weeks that we are used to. So that's unless the Chancellor says otherwise on the 12th of June, we will see. But you can certainly mix between the flexible furlough, so back part-time, and on full-time furlough. And it may be a case as well, while we're on that subject, that when hopefully your business is going to be gradually reintegrating the workforce back, you perhaps don't need everybody back at once as well, because of health and safety implications, because of measures you're going to have to put into the workplace. You may not have sufficient room for everybody. So this flexible furlough arrangement will actually help you reintegrate the staff slowly on a rota basis, and recover grant funding for the time that they do not work for you. So it'd be useful from that perspective.
Okay, that's great. And were there any other changes that you haven't picked up on so far that the Chancellor announced?
Yes, the biggest one is that the scheme is actually going to be closed to new entrants from the 30th of June. So from the 30th of June onwards, so the 1st of July, businesses can only furlough those employees that have been previously furloughed. Now, what that means is if you did want to furlough anybody new, so somebody that hasn't been furloughed previously that's continued to work, if you think that you want to utilize this flexible furlough arrangement moving forward, you will have to furlough anybody that hasn't been by the 10th of June. Now that's 3 weeks prior to the end of June. So you've got that minimum 3-week furlough period prior to the end of June, when the scheme is then closed to new entrants. So that's a really important date that you need to bear in mind. So my advice now is to look at your workforce, look at the employees that you have not furloughed previously, and if you think you may need to utilise the scheme for them, then do that by the 10th of June and confirm that in writing to the employee. One other point that the Chancellor did confirm on Friday was that the number of employees that you can claim for moving forward can't exceed that you've previously claimed for in a previous period. So if we take an example, if you've got 20 employees that you've been furloughing on a rota arrangement, so in each claim period, you are claiming for the 10 employees that are being furloughed, you then bring them back and furlough the other 10. So the maximum number of employees that you've claimed for in each claim period has been 10 because of that rota system. Then moving forward from the 1st of July, you won't be able to claim for all 20. You can only claim for 10. So you can't exceed what you previously claimed for in terms of numbers. So that's another important consideration. So again, have a look at the history of your claims through the scheme. And if you think that your numbers moving forward to the end of October, when the scheme ultimately ends, you may need to have more on furlough or this flexible furlough in relationship, then you may need to furlough people now before the scheme closes to new entrants as of the end of June. So that's another point that's changing. The first time that you can claim under the scheme is from the 1st of July. So that's the first claim period that will open, and the minimum claim period that you can claim for moving forward is a week. If you've been claiming every other week or monthly, if that's your normal claim period, then that can continue, but the minimum period is a week, just to tie in with the fact that that's the minimum period of flexible furlough that you can apply for. Simon.
This next question is about the changes in terms of what businesses have to pay towards furloughing of staff. I believe that they're going to change. Can you give us just some more detail about what those changes are likely to be?
I can, yep. So the Chancellor, this is another big part of the announcement on Friday. As expected, and as we've seen a lot of media reporting prior to the announcement on Friday, there's speculation in terms of how the government support, the government funding was going to be tapered off up to the end of the scheme at the end of October. I'm just going to share my screen with you as well so that we can have a look and work through the tapering of the scheme. So bear with me 1 second. There we go. So as we know now, the maximum that the job retention scheme will cover in terms of a payment is 80% of the monthly wage up to the cap of £2,500 per month. And it also covers at this point employer national insurance contributions and employer pension contributions as well. So that's where we are currently. Now, moving forward, what the Chancellor has announced is this reduction in government support and funding. I mean, they're saying that this will then encourage businesses to slowly get back to work. And in reality, it's the government saying, look, we've already paid a significant amount of money out on the job retention scheme. We do need to phase it out to try and get businesses back to work. And this is how we are going to do it. So from the 1st of July, there's not going to be any change in terms of the government support under the job retention scheme. So it's going to remain at the level of 80% up to £2,500, plus the employer national insurance contributions and auto-enrolment pension contributions will still be covered. In August, the slight change to that, as you can see from the slide here, as I indicate, is that a business will then have to pick up the employer national insurance contributions and the auto-enrolment pension contribution. So that's going to be the only change for August. So a slight reduction in funding from the government from then. Come the beginning of September, the government grant's going to drop to 70% and the employer will have to cover the other 10%. So from the employee's perspective, who remain on furlough, on full-time furlough, nothing changes from their side. They are still entitled to receive the 80% up to £2,500 per month for both September and October. The only change is that the government side will drop to 70% in September and down to 60% in October, meaning that the employer contribution increases up to 10%, then 20%, and I've added the caps as well into that table. So that shows the gradual, like I said at the very beginning, the turning of the tap off in terms of the government support there. That's what we're seeing. That's the main changes as well that we'll see in that regard moving forward. And really, that's to encourage businesses to try and get back to the workplace and get the employers back to the workplace as well. Simon.
So thanks for explaining how the changes are going to work. But is there an impact on the actual claims process as well?
Yeah, so part of this is that the government have tried to explain the rationale really and what impact it will have on claims. So HMRC have carried out an assessment on the job retention